It is Locked On Jazz for the 3rd of January. Welcome to 2023 Locked On Jazz. Clutch play. What's going wrong with the Utah Jazz late in games? The Kings are in town. A preview of that. Lauri Markkanen's All-Star campaign's underway. And Donovan Mitchell dropped 71. Plus, it's a Tuesday, but a Trends Monday. We're confused. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, how are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. For the first time, users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's Prize Picks, promo code Locked On. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available on all podcasting apps. We're available on YouTube for the community there as well. To chat, please subscribe or follow whatever the device app or the app asks and be a part of the community. And on YouTube, hit that little bell button so that you can be notified whenever we put up an episode. Thanks so much. So first off, obviously what happened last night, Monday Night Football, scary and not what you expect out of sports. Also not kind of what we're going to do here, not in any disrespect, but you come here for Jazz stuff. And I've got a million thoughts on it, but it's just not the spot. So we're going to proceed with Jazz in understanding of, that's a scary, scary moment for sports. And we wish our thoughts and best to both all the players that were on the field and experienced that, as well as obviously DeMar, the individual. So let's get to the Jazz, who have continued to play incredible game after incredible game after incredible game, and who are right now have played the most games within 5 points with 5 minutes left of any team in the NBA this season. So that's pretty great. And I actually think that's probably, we're going to get into why we're not winning, and certainly you play the game to win. But that's actually, from a standpoint of where this season started and everything like that, the fact that the Jazz have played 24 games, now Miami's now played 26, and Dallas has played 25. So we have the most, we're right up there, 24 games in which we have been within 5 with 5 minutes left. I think when the season started, I thought the anticipation of this roster to me was that we would play these close games and then we'd fizzle, in the fourth long before it got to clutch time. So we're definitely a full step ahead of anywhere where I thought we would be. In the meantime, we have now lost 7 of our last 9 games that are clutch. And the way you get on a win streak is you win those. I mean, frankly, Dallas is suddenly, won 7 straight. They're 5-0 in the clutch. Indiana's won a bunch of games. They're 5-0 in the clutch. That's a little bit how you get a hot streak. Clutch is variable. You're taking 5 minutes of the game, of a 48-minute game, with all sorts of fewer possessions because it's slowed down a little bit. And then you're making massive observations out of it. I do love the concept. I think the concept is great. The only thing I would kind of add on that is the difference between starting clutch when you're up 5 versus down 5 with 5 minutes left is so dramatically different. And I don't know, if we say it's 3 points or, I don't know if that really changes it or if it does a good enough job to capture it. I can actually run those numbers, and I played around with it last night, trying to see if there was a better way to understand it, because there was a few years ago where the Jazz lost a tremendous amount of clutch games. And then if you dug into it, what was really happening is that the Jazz were down 4 or 5 every single time they got into these circumstances. And then coming back 5 points in 5 minutes is really not very likely. So if you look at it, and then suddenly let's take 3 points or less. So it's always within one possession. Then the Jazz find themselves at 8-13 and have played again, the third most amount of games of any team that have been within that. So, frankly, our 2 wins, we're 10, I think we're clutch this year. In traditional clutch this year, we actually come out better. Our few of our wins are actually the other, where we were ahead by 5. It never got closer. We're 10-14 if it's clutch. If you take it to 1 possession, I mean, that's incredible, by the way. We've played, so far this year, we've played 21 games that were within 1 possession, and 8 of 13. If you dig into this, some of this begins to make just a little sense, okay? And again, sample size small. But in games within 1 possession, we're shooting 39%. Okay, that's not very good. Other teams that aren't shooting well are Oklahoma City. Okay, not surprising. Detroit, not surprising. Houston, not surprising. Philadelphia, super surprising. San Antonio and Indiana. All right, so the teams that are struggling late in games, Cleveland is 2 actually, which is surprising because of Donovan, though his late game has never been great. Last night he was certainly great. But the teams are shooting 40% or below in the NBA in the clutch are Houston, Detroit, Utah, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, but Devin Booker's been out a lot of the season, Philadelphia, San Antonio, and Indiana. Like, that group shouldn't surprise you. We're shooting 34% from 3 in those circumstances. We still get about 40% of our shots as 3, a little fewer than otherwise. That's no different. Houston shoots 33%. Detroit actually makes 40, but they don't take very many. Oklahoma City shoots 30. 76ers shoot 30. Suns shoot 32. Spurs shoot 22. And the Pacers shoot 24. That's probably, like, if we're really honest about who we were when the season started, who our players are, how many of our guys are go-to guys, how many guys are ready for these moments, how many guys are developing into new stuff, like, that totally jives with our expectation when the season started. So we're 24th in the league in shooting in the final 5 minutes of a game that's within 1 possession. All right, like, and I think it's super important recently to kind of look at how we've gotten into those circumstances and what the status is of those games. So Miami the other night, we're just dead tied. Like, that was just a battle to the end. There was 5 minutes left. At the 5-minute mark, it's just tied. Like, I think it's 109, 109. And we miraculously got fouled on 2 3-point plays, and then they were able to go up 7, though. So give them credit. They played that sequence better. The night before against Sacramento, we're trailing the whole night. When we go into clutch, it's 111. It's actually 111, 110. At that point, we've evened the game out. We're now into that incredible stretch where there were 10 straight possessions where we changed scoring time. And then we promptly end up down 6, like actually down 8. So that's not great. Like, the last 2 games, like, if you're going to analyze this, you have to look at how we came into it. In the last 2 clutch games, when we came into it, it was dead even with 5 minutes left. And very quickly after that, we fell behind by 2 or 3 possessions, which is a lot. That's difficult. In the Warriors game, was actually 104. Ty Jerome hit a 3 at 104, 101 with 5:18 left. We had trailed the whole night, worked our way back. There's something about these games that you've trailed the whole way to get back. And then again, we promptly fall behind 107, 103. And then we get it to 1 on Clarkson's 3. And then we miss some free throws late in that one. And then finally the Spurs game where we just didn't play very well. The Malik Beasley 3 kind of would have pulled us back into the game in this recent stretch of games where we have struggled. But in these games, so kind of to all this point of like what is it when we get there? In this case, we were down 10 with 5 minutes left. So that's not a game in which you were probably going to win the clutch. But the other 3, we were dead even in these games and unable to pull them out. It's probably not like stunning, just to kind of narrowing it down to the 3-point games with 5 minutes or less. We're 24th in the league in shooting. We go to the free throw line 25th amount. Okay, that's not like stunning. We are middle of the pack in taking care of the ball, which probably would surprise you. We're the 6th best offensive rebounding team. Early in the year, we won a bunch of games based on offense. Defensively, in those settings, we're 14th against the shot, which is better than we are usually. We are in the bottom 10 foul percentage, but not dramatically. We are in the middle of the pack at forcing turnovers. And then we're 28th in defensive rebounding. So the one area where really we've had massive struggles in the clutch in all these games is actually defensive rebounding. Now, the offense recently has begun to struggle. The offense in the last 9, when we've lost 7 of 9, one of those wins is against the Warriors. We're shooting 35% from the field. Thank you very much, show. I just realized that I had updated these numbers and didn't print it out. So we're 7 of 9. We're shooting 34% from the field. We're 24 of our last 70. We're 9 of 35 from 3, so that's not great. And we're only 67% from the line. So we're whether it's wearing on us or what, we're beginning to make some mistakes. Some of the guys that were like brilliant early. Kelly Olynyk made every shot imaginable late in games. He's 2 of his last 11. Mike Conley made every shot imaginable early in the year. He's 1 of his last 5, 1 of 4 and 3 from 3, and 3 of 6 from line. Clarkson, who's taking this burden. He's never been a go-to guy late in games. He's been amazing recently, but he's never been a go-to guy. He's 8 of his last 22, 3 of 11. And Lowry's been pretty good. He's 40% from the field, 33% from 3, 11 of 11 from the line. So, you know, we're seeing kind of, I think, without, my takeaway is this shouldn't be surprising. I think this is probably, if we were really honest about this team and what we were going to expect this year, this would have been the area where not having the Donovan Mitchell, not having the go-to guy, this was going to probably be the most difficult aspect. And what the real answer to this is probably, can you make 3 or 4 or 5 plays during the 43 minutes prior to clutch where you go into clutch up 4 rather than tied? And give yourself some more wiggle room to be able to get through these clutch performances. And the defensive rebounding has to improve. We're just, you know, that's really the one bugaboo in this whole stretch of games in which we're talking about, where for the season, we're just not a very good late game defensive rebounding team. It specifically cost us the game when we against Sacramento. Let me give one last note on this. In the last 9 games, so this is where we're 2-7. All of our games have been within 1 possession. Here we're 24th in shooting, so suddenly the offense is slipping a little bit. We're 15th in free throw rate, which is fine. We're 19th in turnover rate. Okay, it's not terrible, actually, considering what we were at times. What's interesting is we're not offensive rebounding late in games like we did earlier. Maybe a quest to make sure we get back defensively. We're 20th in defending the shot. Not terrible, considering we're not a very good defensive team. We're fouling a tiny bit more. Opponent's free throw rate is pretty high late in games. Now, we might be fouling because we have to. That's kind of a misleading stat. We're in the middle of the pack at forcing turnovers, and then there it is again. We're 24th in defensive rebounding. So even in the recent stretch, the defensive rebounding is the biggest key, and the shooting's just, I think, variable late in games, and we're just not making some of those shots. Is it that simple? I actually do think that you go back and look at the clutch play, which I did last night. There's just a good look after good look. And so you're just taking these small sample sizes and they swing more than they would otherwise. And we're swinging the wrong way right now. The defensive rebounding is the one constant that is in our clutch struggles that is there all of the time during the season. And so I think that's relevant. And it is a little bit of our personnel makeup. Walker, who's getting more time in the clutch, is not particularly strong rebounding. Jared is not a great defensive rebounder. He just doesn't take up space. Kelly's not a great defensive rebounder. He doesn't get up. Lowry's not a great defensive rebounder. He's got to get better for us to survive. So, I mean, I frankly would love to play Lowry at center late in games. But we would really never clear a board. So it's an interesting, I think it's a tough little stretch for us. Having lost 7 of 9 clutch games, 4 straight overall. It's a testing time. Jazz and the Kings tonight. We're going to run through a bunch of notes. Jordan Clarkson is doing some stuff that I don't think is getting recognized, and I want to make sure that we do recognize it. He is absolutely on fire in the way he is playing. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs have been in Utah for over 80 years, have been here for you. Want you to have the no regrets experience at Murdoch, where nothing about your experience leads you with any type of regret at all. And the Hyundai car lineup is absolutely fantastic. From the Tucson to the Santa Fe to the Palisade to the Little Kona, Forgot about the Kona. And to the great Sonata and the Elantra. The Elantra was named the North American Car of the Year, and the Ioniq 5 was the Motor Trend Car of the Year. Hyundai continues to bring in the awards year in and year out with their innovative style, with all of their great bells and whistles you get for such an incredible price. So if you're looking for a car, make sure you put Hyundai on the list. Test drive it for yourself. If you're going to go visit one of the Hyundai dealerships, Murdoch Hyundai dealerships, please email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. We'll set you up with a VIP meeting with Jake and Lyndon Cameron in Murray, or if you're going up to Logan as well, we can take care of you there as well. It's all Murdoch Hyundai, located 4646 South State Street, also in Logan and in Linden. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is with a 100% deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKED ON. An easy, fun way to play. Prize Picks brings the entertainment to you in every regard. Just pick 2 to 6 players. You can get your entries in under a minute, and you can get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. And whatever sport, NBA, NFL, whatever it might be that you want to play, Eurobasket, disc golf, entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in 30 states or more. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up. Daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKED ON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. If you do $72.50, $72.50. Don't forget, enter the promo code LOCKED ON at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100 with Prize Picks. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. For your second listen, Locked On Sports today has all the big news covered, as well as the few of our guys were in the building in Cincinnati yesterday. We'll talk about the environment, the experience, what it was like to be there, as well as all the other things that are going on in sports. Donovan 71 last night. We'll touch on that as well. All right, I want to get Jazz Kings tonight, and just a bunch of other items. There's just been a lot of games, a lot of time, a lot of things to talk about. So transition tonight's the big one. We allow the second most amount of transition per game, and the Kings top the league with the most. So we allow 21 transition possessions a game, which comes out to about 19% of all possessions. And the Kings are in transition about 23% of the time, which is about 20% of all possessions. So now, what's interesting about the Kings this year that I think is why they're way better than they've ever been before, and where Sabonis is, they're actually a really good half-court team. They're the fifth best offensive half-court team in the NBA right now. They're a really, really bad half-court offense or defense. They're 29th in the league in half-court defense. So we've got to be able to exploit that so that, the way you stop them from running is putting the ball in the net. I don't think we can just slow down De'Aaron Fox. I don't think we don't have those kind of athletes to run with them. So the way that we're going to have to win this game tonight is offensively being superb and slowing down them because of the fact that they're 29th in the league in half-court defense. And so can we execute in the half court? Can Lowry have another big game? Can Jordan have another big game? I want to talk about Jordan. Jordan is doing stuff that I think is getting lost in the midst of Lowry. And boy, what an awesome all-star campaign the Jazz have put out for Lowry, the finisher, the poster, all the efforts they went to. I hope you read those articles. The Jazz actually brought in the ice. If you've seen the poster, there's a poster called The Finisher. And the Jazz have put it out as an all-star campaign, and it's out of the ilk of the great 90s posters. I had the Iceman and Truck Robinson on my wall and the Mailman. And so the Jazz have put out this great, great poster, and if you haven't seen, hopefully you've seen it. I could probably see if I could figure out a way to throw my screen up for you on YouTube, but I'm not so good. Let's see if I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't think this is going to work. This is not very good broadcasting right here. Nope, that's just my family. But if I do this, you'll get it. So anyway, the Jazz built this. This was not planned right here. So the Jazz built this incredible poster of Lowry with a basket in the background. It's actually a real basket. It's actually really shattered. They brought in all this dry ice. They made it just an incredible of work. And Lowry in the poster had Lowry get involved. It's really super work by Ben Barnes and his team with the Jazz, who this is high level stuff. It's a pretty cool articles if you want to read it about all the things they did It's, if you've ever seen the Karl Malone special delivery poster, it's an all-timer. The Iceman poster is an all-timer. But it's got cool stuff to it. It's also got a bunch of little tiny details. It's got the Nordic cross in it. And it's just really, really well done, fun poster to launch the All-Star campaign for Lauri Markkanen, and they've jumped on it early, so it's getting recognition. It's really, really well done. And I love the note Andy Larson had in his story that it's already in Markkanen's 5-year-old's room, which is super cool. So once again, talking about Jordan, I ended up talking about Lauri. I want to talk about Jordan for a second. Jordan's doing some really cool stuff. So first off, for the month of December, Jordan averaged 22 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 46% from the field and 34% from three. So if you dig in a little bit, he's averaging 22 points a game, which is a massive jump from what he did a year ago and what the Jazz asked him. He's starting for the first time, and I think we all just kind of dismiss this as though it's no big deal, but Jordan's starting for the first time since the 2015-16 season. He's got 7 straight games over 20 points right now. His assist totals for the season have jumped from 2.5 to 4.5. His career high was 3.5 his rookie year. He had not been over 2.6 since. So he's now at 4.5 on assists per game. The other night he had 9. He's shooting his career numbers as a shooter are 34% from threes, right on that, about 35%. He's 2-point shooting. He's there. He's going to the free throw line, though, more than he's ever gone before. But when you dig kind of the next level into Jordan's numbers, some of the most interesting things are, in the month of December, his points per drive. So for the season, he's 1.03. In December, he was 1.07. Okay, it's 0.04. Who cares? It's actually a pretty considerable jump. Like, as attention has increased on Jordan during the season, his efficiency on drives has improved to 1.07. His pick and roll game, which he really ran almost no pick and rolls when Donovan and Mike were around, right? Like, that's just something we didn't ask Jordan to do in any way, shape, or form, was to run any type of pick and roll for the Jazz. This year, as Mike has struggled to come back a little bit, and Jordan is now running 24% of our pick and rolls. He's run about a little over, I think 600 was the last number I had on his pick and rolls. To contrast that, just to kind of put that in perspective, I think he ran like 1,000 all season last year. Like, both Don and Mike ran 2,500 is my memory, and Jordan ran like 1,000. So he's at 600 already here. If you go back a few years ago, I think when Joe was much more active, 2 years ago, he ran like fewer than 1,000 pick and rolls. So this is an area where the Jazz where Will Hardy's basically said, okay, well, you're going to do a lot more. His pick and roll game for the season is 1.04. Going into the month was about a 1.02. For December, he was 1.11. He was by far our best pick and roll guard for the month of December, which is pretty incredible. He's great with Kelly Olynyk at 1.18. He's also great with Walker Kessler. So let's keep an eye on that. He's not very good with Lauri. They have not found a mix together. Mike's a little bit better with Lauri than Jordan is. But let's keep an eye on Clarkson and Walker Kessler and whether that goes. But just a tip of the hat to Jordan for his improvement in his drive game, his pick and roll game, and things of that nature. The other one to watch tonight is Colin Sexton's back out with a hamstring. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's been out of the rotation, I assume will step back into the rotation. And I don't know what we're going to do with Walker, whether he's going to start or come off the bench. But Walker and Nickeil Alexander-Walker actually have kind of had a pretty good combo. Nickeil going to his left hand, Walker rolling with the able to catch at his right hand. It's a nice combination. The nice thing about a left-hander is that the big guy can roll with his right hand out. And it's helped him out a little bit. Walker's defensive rating the last 2 games, a 107 against Miami and a 92 against Sacramento. Really, really good. And Walker played, I think, 18 straight minutes to wrap that one up. So pretty incredible to watch that develop. All right, Domatas Sabonis is a big factor tonight for the Jazz. They've got to figure out something to do with that. Donovan goes off for 71, and we might try to quickly look at some league trends as well today. Today's show is brought to you in part by BetOnline, betonline.net, where you can get all your news, information, and insight on sports. It's all at betonline.net. You can get involved in all the action. However, you please look at the latest lines on the NFL moving into Week 17, which I'm pretty certain will continue just as is. The first games are Saturday, the Chiefs and the Raiders. The Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite over the Raiders, and the Jaguars are a 6.5-point favorite over the Titans. There's some big games with playoff implications. The Steelers are a 2.5-point favorite against the Cleveland Browns. Minnesota's a 4-point favorite over the Vikings. The Seahawks are a 6.5-point favorite against the Rams, while the Eagles are a 14-point favorite over the New York Giants to see if they can hold on to their spot. Cowboys are a 4-point favorite over the Washington Commanders. Bunch of great games tonight. Jazz and the Kings, one of only 3 games in the docket. The Jazz are a 3-point favorite with the over-under at 242. It's all at betonline.net, where the game starts. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. For your second listen, feel free to go grab our friends over at Locked On NBA for the game-to-game show with a bunch of action last night, including Donovan dropping 71. So a bunch of thoughts on this. One is awesome. We've always known he had, I don't know if any of us ever thought he had 71 in him. But what we are seeing is whatever joy he lost for a while. And I used to always talk to Donovan about this. This was kind of our number one conversation we used to have. Like at some point, Donovan, you're going to have to figure out, can you keep the zest and the joy that you had? He has it back. Played 50 minutes last night. He took 34 shots to score 71 points. He's 7 of 15 from 3. He has really done everything you can imagine to become virtually unguardable. And the main thing he's done is this off-the-bounce three-point shot that he's always had, but it used to be sitting at league average, and it's just taken him a little while to develop. It is now elite. I mean, he is taking the 6th most amount of pull-ups in the league at 5.6 a game. He is making 45% of his off-the-bounce three-point shots, at which point he's really almost unguardable. Steph Curry's at 48%. Tyrese Halliburton is at 42%. Tyler Hero is at 43%. Desmond Bane, who was the number 1 last year, is at 41%. And Bones Highland is at 44%. Of guys that take 3 a game, those are the only guys in the entire league that are over 40%. Like Dame Lillard's at 38%. Donovan's at 45.3% on off-the-bounce threes. Once he's doing that, you have to go over on every pick. It becomes almost impossible to try to figure out how you're gonna guard him. He's now driving in the lane, and he's just and last night he's playing with power and strength. He looks like he's in better shape than he was a year ago. He could not have played 50 minutes in a game last year, if we're being really honest about it. He just never was in, maybe coming off that ankle or whatever reason, he was never in that level of physical condition. But it's pretty great to watch him have this kind of joyousness. He had 20 at halftime and 51 in the second half and overtime last night. I mean, that's mind-blowing. Third quarter, Donovan last night had 24 points on 6 of 9 shooting, went to the free throw line 12 times. In the fourth quarter, he followed with 18 on 7 of 11 shooting. And then in the fourth quarter last night, in the overtime, he went 4 for 4, 3 of 3 from 3, and 13 points. He's great. You can be broken that he's not ours anymore. I think that's completely fair. Like, he's just that great a talent. You just don't see it very often. And he's maximizing it right now, and it's wonderful to see. Because that's, you want to see these players do as well as they can, and he is rolling. And I think more importantly, he just looks happy, whether particularly off the court stuff as well as on the court stuff. He has a new girl. He's much more out about like sharing it, and he just seems to be in a great place. He was talking to people when we were in Cleveland. He seemed to be in a great place, and I think he learned from some of the mistakes that he made, because that's what we do in life, is that we actually learn from what we did before. And pretty amazing to see him drop 71 and play in that nature. I didn't get a chance to review that one. I have a bunch of games I'm behind that I'll try to get to somehow between now and tomorrow for the show. Tuesday, we usually do We usually do the late games, but I thought league trends on a Monday might be more important, and we'll catch up on late games the next few days. Brooklyn is obviously the hottest team in the league. Quickly on league trends. Interesting, Washington is second at 6-1 over the last games with a plus 12 differential. Actually, I said this last week that we should be doing this in the opposite direction. So we are going to do this in the opposite direction this week. Let's do the last 10 games, and then we'll do last 2 weeks. So Brooklyn is still the number one team. Brooklyn offensively, here's the 5 hottest teams in the league are Brooklyn, Philadelphia over the last 10 games, Memphis, the Knicks, and Washington, with Dallas right there as well at 6. Coldest teams in the league, Houston, Detroit, San Antonio, Charlotte, and Milwaukee, interestingly, at -5, in Chicago. Brooklyn's offense over the last 10 games is 5.4 points better than anyone else in the league. So Brooklyn's 1 offensively, Dallas is 2, New York is 3, Cleveland is 4, Indiana has won 7 of their last 10, is 5. They've really become the story. We've quieted a little bit, and they have not. Portland's 6th offensively. Teams that are having a hard time scoring right now are Houston, Charlotte, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City, Golden State, and Detroit. Boston's 24th offensively, which is really surprising. Last 10 games, the best defensive teams are Memphis, Philadelphia, Boston, Washington, surprising, New York, and Brooklyn. Brooklyn's the 6th best defensive team with that offense. That's how you win as many straight as they have. Teams that can't defend right now are San Antonio, Chicago, Detroit, Sacramento. So the last 10 games, they're 27th in the league defensively. We got to take advantage of that tonight. Toronto and the Lakers. And that's the last 10 games. If we go to the last 2 weeks, some of these change a little bit. Brooklyn, Washington, Boston becomes the 3rd hottest team. Dallas, the 4th, New York, and Philadelphia. We're actually right up there. Ironically enough, at 2-4. In the last 2 weeks, we're the 10th ranked differential team in the league. Teams that are struggling are San Antonio, Milwaukee, Detroit, Houston, and Phoenix. So no Chris Paul. Giannis in and out. Milwaukee's not quite right. Charlotte as well. Best offenses in the last 2 weeks. Brooklyn is still dominant. Dallas, number 2 with Luka. New York, 3. Indiana, 4. And the Jazz are the 5th best offense in the last 2 weeks. And 21st defensively. We're really playing very, very well. Just late game variability. The worst offense in the league the last 2 weeks is Milwaukee, then Charlotte, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Detroit. Surprising to keep hearing Milwaukee's name. Best defenses in the last 2 weeks, stunning, Brooklyn. Last 2 weeks, Brooklyn's the number 1 offense, number 1 defense in the league. Washington 2, Memphis 3, Oklahoma City 4, New Orleans 5. And the teams that aren't defending are San Antonio, Detroit, Cleveland. Interesting, because they're like number 2 or 3 in the league. Number 3 in the league, and they're 28th in the last 2 weeks. Phoenix, Sacramento, and the Lakers. That is Locked On Jazz for today. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for making us your first listen. Now go listen to Locked On Sports Today. We'll be back with you tonight with Postcast after the game, as well as a little Locked On Jazz tomorrow. Have a good one.